Hello my friends, it's a beautiful day today, so I thought I'd shoot this one outside, enjoy a little bit the sun, get some nice tan. And today I want to talk a little bit about challenging your beliefs and not blindly believing everything that is negative. And chances right now are that if I told you something negative, for instance, those people over there, they don't like you, or these people there, they were looking at your clothes and they think it's ridiculous and they were laughing about you. If I told you these kind of things, chances are that you might believe them very easily without questioning them much or without resisting, or at least you would be looking, did they really think about my clothes? Really? Like, do I really look embarrassing or ridiculous? And you might be very easily affected by these kind of negative beliefs. And if I told you to believe something positive about yourself, for example, these people are there, they were looking at you, they were smiling, they would wish that you approach them and they want to meet you. If I told you that, then you might be, yeah, whatever. Or like if I told you you're a very likable person, yeah, whatever. And you might ask for some kind of proof, okay? If that's really the case, prove it, you know? And then you might ask me, okay, go over there and see if they really wanted to meet me. Or you might ask for some kind of proof. Now what's really interesting about this is, why don't you ask for the same level of proof about your negative beliefs? Why are you willing to blindly believe something negative like that, but for the positive things you resist and you question them and you go against them, right? And you do this with every single belief that is positive, and you believe every single negative belief much more easily. So you have a filter that is open for the negative very easily, and you have a filter for the positive that blocks all of them up. Because unless there's proof, you're not gonna believe that, you know. Or then you say, I know that, I'm a likable person, but you don't really believe it. You say, I know I should believe it, but in here, you don't really feel it. So what I want to give you today is something called the reality check technique. And it's a way to put your common beliefs into more valid and realistic context. And so let's say, have you ever been to a situation where you've been out eating, for example, alone in public? Could be a school cafeteria, university cafeteria, maybe a workplace, maybe a Starbucks coffee, whatever it is, doesn't really matter. And you're out there alone eating, and there's people around you, and you start thinking all these things in your head. You go crazy and you think, okay, I'm here alone and I don't have anyone to talk to, so other people might think that I'm weird, or I don't have friends, and and you start convincing yourself all this stuff. And it might be that you're at a cafeteria alone waiting for someone, or you're eating at your workplace or a cafeteria all alone, and you look around and everyone else is having a conversation partner and so on. So I want you to use the reality check technique in any kind of environment that you have a negative belief that might be unreasonable. And the way you do this is, I want you to come up with a way that you can either prove the negative belief to be true or false. So if you say in a cafeteria, when I sit alone, people look at me and they judge me for sitting alone, and they think I'm weird because I don't have anyone else to sit with. And it's a negative belief about yourself. And I think, okay, how can you prove that? Either right or wrong. Okay? So you might think, okay, how can I prove that people think negatively about me and they judge me and they look at me all the time? Okay, well, they look at me all the time. You can just, next time you're in a cafeteria, look around and count the amount of people that look at you constantly. And if they look at you once, that doesn't count because you look at everyone else also at the time, right? So count the people that constantly over several time periods looks at you. Then they talk about me badly. How can you prove that to be right or wrong? Well, start listening, start tuning in the conversations that the people have next to you, and listen to how many of them are talking about you, and how many of them are talking about you negatively. And then you start noticing that too. Right? You look around and you become aware of your environment a little bit. What you will start noticing is that they have their own problems, they have their own fears, they have their own things going on. And you might even notice other people eating alone as well. But just do this, and then count the amount of people. Maybe you go into your workplace and you see there's around 80 people, and maybe you might find that 5 or 6 are looking at you constantly, you know. and then your expected outcome beliefs are compared to the actual reality outcome beliefs. If you believe that everyone is looking at you and judging you, and you say, okay, I went to a cafeteria, there were 80 people. Out of these 80 people, 5 or 6 people were constantly looking at me and like talking and whatever. So you have 5 out of 80 people, which is less than 5%. Okay? So there's 95% of people who didn't give a shit about you eating there alone. And you're not even sure about these two. You just noticed that they looked at you, and maybe it's because you looked at them too, and they were wondering, why is that person looking at me? Right? So just get a little bit into perspective, because now out of the original belief that you have that everyone is looking at you, all of a sudden, zoop, 95% of them are gone. And then you listened. How many of the tables around you were talking about you? And you realized no one was talking about me. They were talking about the weather, about some new movies, about problems, about dating, about whatever. No one was talking about you. So now that belief is also out of the window, right? And then the last thing before you go out and actually do the reality check technique is to think about what is it that you're afraid of. Because it is not that you're afraid of other people thinking negatively about you, right? If I told you, what are you afraid of? And you say, I'm afraid that people look at me and they think I'm weird. Okay, that's not the actual fear. If I ask you, okay, what would happen if they thought about you that you're weird? And then you might think, okay, if they thought I was weird, I might be embarrassed. There you go. Embarrassment is the core feeling here, the core fear that you have. Write that also down, and be sure to always notice what the fear behind that is. The fear of embarrassment. Okay? Simple as that. Go out, think about ways you can prove your belief to be true or wrong, observe and compare the expected outcomes that you had previously with the actual outcomes. Okay? And if the actual outcomes are completely wrong, well, maybe it's time to let the belief go. And you can do this over and over again, and you will notice that most of your negative beliefs are completely irrational and nonsense. Okay? And this is just a logical way to attack those beliefs. Afterwards we can go into a more emotional way to attack those beliefs. But